My name is Stephanie, and at 34, I thought I knew everything about my husband Ryan after 8 years of marriage. That confidence shattered the evening I took an unexpected detour past my best friend Ashley's house. There, half hidden by twilight shadows, was Ryan's silver Audi parked a block away. I watched, frozen, as my husband glanced furtively around before approaching her door, clutching a gift bag. What he never noticed was the determined figure quietly following 20 paces behind him. If you're watching this and have ever had that gut-wrenching moment of betrayal, hit subscribe and let me know where you're tuning in from. Trust me, this story doesn't end how you think it will. Ryan and I met at a backyard barbecue hosted by our mutual friend Brittany. I was helping arrange food on the patio table when he approached, offering to help. There was something endearing about the way he carefully arranged the potato salad and coleslaw, making sure everything looked perfect. We talked for hours that day, long after other guests had left. His genuine laugh and the way he really listened when I spoke made him different from other guys I'd dated. Our romance moved quickly after that. Within 6 months, we were inseparable, and by our 1-year anniversary, he proposed during a weekend trip to Maine. The small beach wedding we planned turned into a beautiful celebration with 60 of our closest friends and family. Ashley, my college roommate and confidante for 15 years, stood beside me as my maid of honor, beaming with genuine happiness for us. We settled into a comfortable life in a suburban neighborhood with friendly neighbors and tree-lined streets. Ryan's career as a financial analyst provided stability, while my work as a graphic designer gave me creative fulfillment. We weren't perfect, we had occasional arguments about household chores or spending habits, but we always found our way back to each other by day's end. Our marriage felt secure, a partnership built on mutual respect and shared dreams. Ashley remained a constant in our lives. She married Mark 3 years after our wedding, and the 4 of us often vacationed together, sharing rental beach houses and creating memories that filled our photo albums. But last year, her marriage crumbled when she discovered Mark's 6-month affair with a coworker. I still remember her tearful call at midnight, her voice breaking as she shared the devastating news. I became her support system during the divorce. We spent countless evenings on her couch with ice cream and tissues, working through her grief. Ryan was understanding about the time I spent with her, often encouraging me to go help Ashley when she was having a particularly rough day. He even helped her move into a smaller house when she sold the home she'd shared with Mark. That's why the subtle changes in Ryan's behavior over the past few months seemed so out of character. It started with small things: working late more frequently, being unusually protective of his phone, changing his password. Our conversations grew shorter, less intimate. Physical intimacy decreased as he claimed exhaustion from work stress. I noticed new clothes appearing in his closet, styles slightly different from what he typically wore. Once, I found a receipt for an expensive restaurant downtown on a night he claimed to be working late. These changes registered in my subconscious, but I pushed away the nagging concerns. His marketing firm had landed several new clients, which explained the longer hours. The password change was probably due to the day of breach his company experienced. The new clothes could be his attempt to impress important clients. I had logical explanations for everything. Perhaps my dismissal of these warning signs stemmed from my childhood. My parents' marriage ended when I was 12, after my mother discovered my father's 3-year affair with his secretary, the most cliched betrayal imaginable. The subsequent divorce was ugly, filled with accusations and bitterness that affected me deeply. I'd promised myself my marriage would be different. Ryan and I would communicate openly. We would work through problems together. We would never become my parents. So when these small doubts arose, I silenced them. I trusted Ryan. I believed in our marriage. I refused to become suspicious and paranoid like my mother had been in her final years with my father. Even when my inner voice whispered warnings, I chose trust over fear. After all, Ryan wasn't my father, and I wasn't my mother. Our marriage was stronger than that. How ironic that my determination to avoid my mother's mistakes nearly blinded me to what was happening right in front of me. The morning everything changed began normally enough. Ryan kissed me goodbye before heading to work, though I noticed he seemed distracted, checking his watch repeatedly during breakfast. When I asked if everything was okay, he mentioned a big presentation scheduled for that afternoon. "Don't wait up tonight," he said, adjusting his tie in our bedroom mirror. "This client meeting might run late, and the team will probably go for drinks afterward if it goes well." I nodded, already mentally adjusting our dinner plans. No problem. I might call Ashley and see if she wants to grab dinner instead. A strange expression flickered across Ryan's face. Actually, I think Ashley mentioned having plans tonight when I ran into her at the grocery store yesterday. That was odd. Ashley hadn't mentioned seeing Ryan when he spoke on the phone yesterday, but before I could ask about it, Ryan was checking his watch again, grabbing his briefcase, and rushing out with a quick peck on my cheek. Around lunchtime, I called Ashley to chat about weekend plans. She sounded cheerful as we discussed potentially driving to the farmer's market on Saturday morning. By the way, are you free for dinner tonight? I asked casually. Ryan has a late client meeting. There was the briefest pause before she answered. Oh, I'm sorry, Seth, I can't tonight. I've got some things I need to take care of at home. No problem, I replied, remembering what Ryan had said. Ryan mentioned you might be busy when he saw you yesterday. Another slight hesitation. Right, yes, we bumped into each other at Martin's Market. He was buying those protein bars he likes. The conversation moved on, but something felt off. Ashley usually shared every detail of her day with me, especially casual encounters with friends. Why had she not mentioned seeing Ryan? Later that afternoon, I finished my graphic design project early and decided to drop off a physical portfolio at a client's office rather than emailing the files. The client lived in a neighborhood near Ashley's new place, and on impulse, I decided to take the scenic route home that would pass by her house. I wasn't planning to stop and she'd said she was busy, but something inside me wanted to drive by. Maybe subconsciously I already suspected something. The early evening light was fading as I turned onto her street. I slowed down, admiring the row of craftsman-style homes with their neat front yards. That's when I spotted it, Ryan's silver Audi with the distinctive dent on the passenger door from a parking lot incident last year. It was parked a block away from Ashley's house, partially hidden by a large oak tree. My stomach clenched. Why would Ryan's car be here when he was supposed to be in a client meeting downtown? I pulled over, killed my engine, and waited, my heart hammering against my ribs. 5 minutes later, Ryan appeared, walking briskly toward Ashley's house. He wore business attire but had removed his tie and unbuttoned his collar. In his hand was a small gift bag with tissue paper peeking out the top. He glanced around furtively before approaching her door, looking nothing like a man casually visiting his wife's best friend. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My husband and my best friend. The two people I trusted most in the world, sneaking around behind my back. I felt nauseated, my vision blurring with tears that I angrily blinked away. That's when I noticed someone else, a woman walking about 20 paces behind Ryan. She moved with purpose, her attention fixed on my husband's back. From my vantage point, I couldn't immediately identify her, but she was clearly following him. Ryan, so focused on his secretive approach, never noticed her. I watched as Ryan rang Ashley's doorbell. The door opened, Ashley's silhouette visible in the warm light from inside. Ryan stepped in quickly, the door closing behind him. The mystery woman slowed her pace, stopping at the edge of Ashley's property, partially concealed by landscaping. She appeared to be taking photos with her phone. My mind raced with confused thoughts. Who is this woman? A private investigator? Another betrayed spouse? Should I approach her? Confront Ryan and Ashley, drive away and pretend I hadn't seen anything? The pain of potential betrayal overwhelmed me. I started my car with shaking hands and drove away, tears now flowing freely down my face. I needed space to think, to process what I'd just witnessed. The husband I trusted and the friend who cried on my shoulder during her own husband's infidelity, were they now inflicting that same pain on me? I drove aimlessly for nearly an hour, replaying the scene in my mind. Ryan's furtive approach. The gift bag. Ashley's quick welcome. The mysterious follower. Each mental replay stabbed deeper into my heart. By the time I pulled into our driveway, my shock had transformed into a cold, focused anger. I needed answers, and I would get them, but on my terms, not by rushing in emotionally unprepared. I checked my appearance in the rearview mirror, wiped away the mascara smudges under my eyes, and went inside to begin my investigation. Our house felt different when I entered, colder, unfamiliar, as though the foundations of my life had shifted. I moved through the rooms with new awareness, seeing evidence of Ryan's presence everywhere. His coffee mug in the sink, his running shoes by the door, his sweater draped over a dining chair. Had these ordinary items been concealing extraordinary deceit all along? I went straight to our bedroom and opened his nightstand drawer where he kept his spare phone charger and odds and ends. Nothing suspicious there. Next, I checked his dresser drawers, carefully lifting and replacing his neatly folded clothes. No hidden gifts, no mysterious receipts, no evidence of betrayal. His laptop sat on the desk in our home office. I hesitated before opening it. We'd never been the type of couple to snoop through each other's devices. We'd always respected each other's privacy. But that was before I saw him sneaking into my best friend's house. The laptop was password protected, but I knew his usual password. To my surprise, none worked. He had changed it recently. Another red flag to add to the growing list. I picked up my phone and scrolled through our text message history. The recent exchanges were mundane, coordinating schedules, grocery lists, brief check-ins throughout the day. But looking at them now with suspicious eyes, I noticed gaps in our communication, particularly on evenings when he claimed to be working late. I opened our shared mobile account online and reviewed his call history. Numerous calls to a number I didn't recognize. The same number appeared repeatedly over the past 2 months, sometimes with calls lasting over an hour. I texted the number from my phone, "Who is this?" While waiting for a reply, I checked our credit card statements. Several charges stood out. A jewelry store down on 3 weeks ago, an upscale restaurant on a night Ryan said he was working late, a bookstore, and multiple gas station charges in Ashley's neighborhood far from Ryan's office or usual routes. My mind flashed back to other troubling signs I'd dismissed. The weekend errands that took hours longer than they should have. The sudden interest in his appearance, new cologne, new clothes, a new haircut. The decreased intimacy between us, always explained away by fatigue or stress. The times I'd call his office late and be told he'd already left, only for him to arrive home an hour later claiming to have been there the whole time. How had I been so blind? The evidence was scattered in plain sight, waiting for me to connect the dots. Now that I was looking, the picture was painfully clear. My phone rang, startling me. A no number. I answered cautiously. "Stephanie, it's Jessica, Ashley's neighbor from across the street." I recognized her voice. We'd met a few times at Ashley's housewarming party and neighborhood gatherings. "I saw you earlier, watching your husband go into Ashley's house," she continued when I didn't immediately respond. "That was you following him?" I asked, pieces clicking into place. "Yes, I've seen him visit multiple times over the past few weeks. Always when you're not around. Always looking over his shoulder like he's doing something wrong." Her voice was gentle but direct. "I thought you should know. I went through something similar with my ex-husband. Nobody told me, and I wish they had." I sank onto the edge of our bed, clutching the phone. "How long has this been going on?" "At least a month that I've noticed. He usually stays for an hour or two. Sometimes brings gifts or food. I started taking photos after the 3rd time I saw him there. I wasn't sure if I should tell you, but when I saw you driving by today, I thought maybe you already suspected something." A month. While I was working, sleeping, living my life, trusting both of them, the betrayal was almost too much to bear. "Have you seen anyone else visit?" I asked, wondering if Ashley was entertaining multiple men, or if this betrayal was specific to my husband. "Just your husband and occasionally, an older man I don't recognize. Middle-aged, balding. He drives a dark blue SUV, Mark." That had to be Mark, Ashley's ex-husband. What was he doing there? Were they reconciling while she was also seeing my husband? The situation was growing more complicated and painful by the minute. "Jessica, would you be willing to help me?" I asked, an idea forming. "I need to know exactly what's happening before I confront them." "Of course," Jessica replied without hesitation. "What do you need?" We spent the next half hour planning our approach. Jessica would continue monitoring Ashley's house and documenting Ryan's visits. I would pretend everything was normal while gathering more evidence. When the time was right, we would confront them together, strength in numbers against their united deceit. After hanging up, I sat in the silent house, confronting the possibility that my marriage and my closest friendship might both be shams. The pain was physical, a heaviness in my chest that made it difficult to, but beneath the hurt, a steely resolve was forming. I deserved the truth, however ugly it might be. Ryan texted that he was heading home from his client meeting. I responded casually, giving no indication of what I'd discovered. When he arrived, I watched him with new eyes as he recounted fictional details of his business dinner. The ease with which he lied to my face was perhaps the most painful revelation of all. That night, lying beside my husband in bed, I stared at the ceiling and planned my next moves. I would be strategic, methodical. I would uncover the full extent of their betrayal before confronting them, and when I did, they would never see it coming. The next morning over breakfast, I maintained a facade of normalcy that deserved an Oscar nomination. I smiled at Ryan across our kitchen island, asked about his workday ahead, and kissed him goodbye as he left for the office. The moment the door closed behind him, my smile vanished, replaced by grim determination. I called in sick to work, something I rarely did, and texted Jessica to confirm our plan. For the next week, we would document every interaction between Ryan and Ashley, building an irrefutable case before confrontation. Jessica's location across from Ashley's house gave her a perfect vantage point for surveillance. She agreed to note arrival and departure times, take discreet photos, and report any unusual activity. Meanwhile, I would monitor phone records, track Ryan's location through our shared family app, and maintain the illusion of ignorance. Remember, Jessica cautioned during our planning call, don't tip them off. People get creative with lies when they know they're being watched. I spent that first day establishing patterns. Ryan's phone location showed him at his office downtown. I called his direct line twice, confirming he was actually there. Around lunchtime, I noticed his location moved to a cafe near Ashley's workplace, a coincidence. I called Ashley casually to chat, and she mentioned being swamped at work, unable to take lunch. Another lie. By evening, Ryan's location showed him heading home, making no detours. He arrived with takeout food, apologizing for being late. Major crisis with the Johnson account, he explained, naming a client I recognized. The lies flowed effortlessly from his lips. The most difficult part was pretending everything was normal during family dinner with Ryan's parents that weekend. Alina and William Thompson had always treated me like a daughter. Sitting across from them at our dining room table, laughing at William's corny jokes while knowing their son might be betraying our marriage, felt like a special kind of torture. You two seem so solid, Alina commented at one point, reaching out to pat my hand affectionately. In this day and age, that's something special. I forced a smile while Ryan smoothly replied, we work at it every day, Mom. The irony nearly made me choke on my wine. After dinner, Ryan announced he needed to run to the office briefly to prepare for Monday's presentation. A quick check of our family location app after he left showed him driving not toward downtown, but in the direction of Ashley's neighborhood. I texted Jessica immediately. 20 minutes later, she confirmed, he's here, parked in the same spot as before. Went inside at 8:47 p.m. I thanked Ryan's parents for coming, made excuses about a headache, and retreated to our bedroom where I could monitor the situation in private. Jessica provided regular updates. Ryan was still inside at 9:30, still there at 10:15. At 10:42, she reported, he's leaving now. Looks happy. They hugged at the door. When Ryan returned home around 11:15, he slipped into bed beside me, assuming I was asleep. I felt him kiss my shoulder gently before turning away. The tenderness of the gesture after what I knew he'd been doing was almost unbearable. The week continued in this painful pattern. I maintained appearances, preparing meals, discussing mundane topics, even being intimate when he initiated all while documenting his betrayal. Jessica reported 2 more evening visits to Ashley's house, one lasting nearly 3. On Wednesday, I took a calculated risk and suggested meeting Ashley for lunch. She agreed readily, showing no signs of guilt as we chatted about her graphic design projects and my difficult client. When I casually mentioned Ryan's late nights at work, she nodded sympathetically. Poor guy must be exhausted, she said, reaching for her water glass. These big clients can be so demanding. Her ability to look me in the eye while potentially sleeping with my husband behind my back was chilling. Had I ever really known her at all? By Friday, we had accumulated substantial evidence. 7 documented visits over 2 weeks, phone records showing dozens of calls between them, and Ryan's numerous unexplained absences that coincided with his visits to her house. Jessica and I met at a coffee shop far from our neighborhood to finalize our confrontation plan. He's mentioned having to work late again tomorrow night, I told her, stirring my untouched latte. Based on the pattern, he'll probably go to her house around 8. Jessica nodded, sliding her phone across the table to show me the photos she compiled. Ryan entering Ashley's house with wine, embracing at the door, standing close together in her kitchen window. I've been thinking, she said hesitantly. There's something odd about all this. Besides my husband and best friend betraying me, I asked bitterly. Yes, actually. If they're having an affair, why risk being seen together in public places? And what about the other man, Ashley's ex? He visited twice this week while Ryan was at work. She was right. Some pieces didn't quite fit the typical affair narrative. But what other explanation could there be for the secretive visits, the lies, the gift bags and wine? Maybe they're both seeing her, I suggested, the thought making me physically ill. Or maybe she's playing them against each other. Jessica didn't look convinced but didn't argue. Whatever's happening, you deserve the truth. Tomorrow night, we'll get it. We finalized our plan. When Ryan went to Ashley's house the following evening, we would wait 30 minutes, then confront them together. No warnings, no chance to coordinate their stories. Just the raw, unvarnished truth, however painful it might be. That night, I lay awake beside Ryan, studying his sleeping profile. The familiar curve of his jaw, the slight furrow between his brows even in sleep, the lips that had whispered, "I love you" countless times over our years together. Had it all been a lie? Or had something changed without my noticing? Either way, by this time tomorrow night, nothing would ever be the same between us. Saturday unfolded with excruciating slowness. Ryan puttered around the house, handling weekend chores, completely unaware of what was coming. At 6:30 p.m., he received a text that made him frown slightly. "Everything okay?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. "Yeah, just work stuff. Actually, I need to go in for a bit. The Henderson presentation needs some tweaking before Monday." The Henderson presentation, another fabrication in his web of lies. I nodded understandingly. "No problem, don't work too hard." At 7:45 p.m., our family location app showed Ryan approaching Ashley's neighborhood. Jessica confirmed his arrival at 8:03 p.m. right on schedule. He carried a bottle of wine and a small package. She watched him enter Ashley's house, then texted me, "Operation Truth begins now." I drove to Jessica's house, my stomach in knots. She was waiting outside, a supportive smile on her face as I parked and walked up her driveway. "Ready?" she asked, her expression compassionate. "As I'll ever be," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. We were about to cross the street when Jessica grabbed my arm. "Wait, someone else just pulled up." We watched as a dark blue SUV parked behind Ryan's Audi. A middle-aged man emerged, Mark, Ashley's ex-husband. He approached Ashley's door confidently, a bouquet of flowers in one hand. "What the hell?" I whispered. Was this some kind of twisted love triangle? Were all three of them involved somehow? Mark disappeared inside Ashley's house. Jessica and I exchanged bewildered glances. "This just got a lot more complicated," she said. "Or maybe a lot clearer," I replied grimly. "Let's end this now." We crossed the street, determination fueling each step. Whatever was happening behind that door, I was about to discover the truth, all of it. My heart pounded as we approached Ashley's front door. The curtains were drawn, but warm light spilled from the edges, and I could hear muffled voices inside. My hand trembled slightly as I raised it to knock, then changed my mind and tried the doorknob instead. It turned easily unlocked. Jessica gave me an encouraging nod as I pushed the door open and stepped inside, her steady presence right behind me. The scene that greeted us was nothing like I had imagined. Ryan, Ashley, and Mark sat around Ashley's dining table, which was covered with papers, brochures, and what looked like legal documents. All three heads snapped up at our entrance, expressions of shock registering simultaneously. "Stephanie," Ashley gasped, standing so quickly her chair tipped backward. "What are you doing here?" Ryan's face drained of color. "Steph, how did you?" His eyes darted to Jessica behind me, confusion evident. Mark looked the least surprised, almost resigned, as he slowly set down the wine glass he'd been holding. The room fell into stunned silence, the tension so thick it seemed to vibrate in the air. I stood frozen in the doorway, trying to process what I was seeing. No romantic dinner, no intimate setting, just three people surrounded by paperwork. "What the hell is going on here?" I finally managed, my voice sounding strange even to my own ears. Ryan stood, moving toward me with his hands raised placatingly. "Steph, I can explain. This isn't what it looks like." "Really? Because I've been watching you sneak over here for weeks, lying about where you're going, bringing gifts, wine." I gestured to the bottle on the table. "Meanwhile, my supposed best friend has been lying to my face every time we talk." Ashley's eyes filled with tears. "Oh God, Stephanie, no, you've got it all wrong." "Have I? Then explain why my husband has been visiting you secretly while lying to me about working late. Explain the phone calls, the texts, the gifts." Jessica stepped forward, pulling out her phone. "I've been documenting everything. Ryan's visits, the times, the gifts, we have proof." Mark surprisingly let out a short laugh, though it contained no humor. "Well, this explains why everything felt so unnecessarily cloak and dagger." He looked at Ryan and Ashley with an expression that seemed almost accusatory. Ryan ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "Stephanie, please, just give me a chance to explain. We didn't want you to know because you're having an affair," I finished for him, tears finally breaking through my angry facade. "My husband and my best friend, the two people I trusted most in the world." "No," Ashley and Ryan exclaimed simultaneously. "I would never do that to you," Ashley said, moving around the table toward me, though she stopped when I backed away. "Ryan has been helping me with Mark." I looked between them, confusion momentarily replacing anger. "What?" Ryan took a deep breath. "Ashley and Mark have been working on reconciling. They've been in counseling, trying to see if they can rebuild their marriage after everything that happened." I stared at Mark, who nodded in confirmation. "But why the secrecy? Why lie to me about it?" I demanded. Ashley wiped at her tears. "Because I was afraid you'd talk me out of it. After everything Mark did, after all the times I cried on your shoulder and you held me through the worst of it, I was afraid you'd think I was being weak or stupid for giving him another chance." Mark spoke up. "I've been in intensive therapy for the past year, Stephanie, working through my issues, trying to become someone worthy of Ashley's trust again. It hasn't been easy, and we're still figuring things out, but we wanted to try." I turned to Ryan, hurt still raw in my voice. "And you? Why would you lie to me like this? Do you have any idea what it's done to me, thinking you were cheating?" Ryan's face crumpled with remorse. "I promised Ashley I wouldn't tell you until she was ready. She wanted to be sure things with Mark were really working before letting anyone know, especially you, because your opinion matters so much to her. I was just trying to support her, like she supported you through your parents." Jessica stepped forward, phone still in hand. "But the gifts, the wine, the long visits?" Ryan gestured to the table. "Relationship books, brochures for couples retreats. Buying for when the conversations got difficult. I've been acting as a kind of mediator, sometimes an objective third party who cares about both of them." I walked to the table and picked up the small gift bag that had been sitting there. Inside was a weekend retreat voucher for a couples counseling center in the mountains, along with a handwritten note. "For the next step in your journey. You've both come so far, Ryan." Reality crashed over me in waves. They weren't having an affair. They were trying to help Ashley and Mark find their way back to each other. The secret visits, the phone calls, the lies, all to protect Ashley's privacy while she made a difficult, personal decision. "Why couldn't you just tell me?" I asked, my voice small. "Did you really think I'd judge you so harshly, Ash?" Ashley wiped fresh tears. "After all the horrible things I said about Mark, after swearing I'd never let him back into my life, you were so supportive of me starting fresh without him. I was afraid of disappointing you. And I was afraid of betraying her confidence," Ryan added. "But I never meant to hurt you, Steph. I thought I was doing the right thing for everyone." Jessica looked thoroughly uncomfortable. "I think I may have jumped to conclusions. When I saw Ryan visiting so secretively, I assumed the worst." "We all did," I said quietly, the weight of my accusations hanging heavy in the room. Mark cleared his throat. "For what it's worth, I suggested they tell you from the beginning. Secrets have a way of causing more damage than the truth ever could. I've learned that lesson the hard way." The irony wasn't lost on me, the former cheater advocating for transparency while my honest husband had chosen secrecy. I sank into an empty chair, emotionally exhausted. I've spent weeks thinking my marriage was a lie. That my best friend was betraying me. Do you have any idea what that's done to me? Ryan knelt beside my chair, taking my hands in his. "I'm so sorry, Steph. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I was protecting Ashley's privacy, but I see now I was just breaking your trust. I should have found a way to be honest with you." Ashley joined him, tears streaming down her face. "This is exactly why I didn't want to tell you yet. I've caused a rift between you and Ryan. I never wanted that." The room fell silent as the weight of misunderstandings and secrets hung between us. Jessica shifted awkwardly by the door, clearly unsure of her place in this unfolding drama. "I think," Mark said finally, "that we all need to remember that however misguided, everyone here was acting out of love and loyalty. Misplaced perhaps, but still coming from a good place." His words, surprisingly wise from the man who had once betrayed Ashley so profoundly, broke something open in the room. The tension didn't disappear, but it shifted, making space for understanding to begin. The drive home with Ryan that night was silent, heavy with unspoken thoughts and residual hurt. We'd left Ashley's house after awkward apologies all around, Jessica apologizing for surveillance, Ashley for requesting secrecy, Ryan for maintaining it, and me for assuming the worst without confronting them directly. Even Mark had apologized for suggesting the clandestine approach. We were all sorry, but sorry didn't immediately heal the damage done. At home, Ryan and I sat at opposite ends of our living room couch, the distance between us more than physical. "I should have trusted you," I finally said, breaking the silence. "But you also should have trusted me with the truth." Ryan nodded, his eyes tired but clear. "You're right. I convinced myself I was being a good friend to Ashley by keeping her confidence, but I was being a terrible husband to you in the process. Why didn't you just tell me you were helping them? Did you really think I'd be angry about that?" He rubbed his face wearily. "It wasn't about you being angry. Ashley was terrified of disappointment, yours specifically. She values your opinion more than almost anyone's. When she first told me Mark had reached out, wanting to try again, she made me promise not to tell you until she was sure it was working." "And you agreed, just like that?" "No, not just like that. I argued with her. I told her secrets between spouses were dangerous. But then she reminded me how you helped her through her darkest days after discovering Mark's affair, how you were her rock when everything was falling apart. She was afraid of letting you down if things with Mark didn't work out." I remembered those dark days, Ashley curled up on my couch, sobbing until she had no tears left, me promising her she would find happiness again, that she deserved better than a cheating husband. "So you started sneaking around, meeting them secretly, helping them reconcile." Ryan nodded. "At first, it was just coffee with Ashley, listening to her confusion about Mark's attempts to reconnect. Then it became facilitating conversations between them. Mark has done extensive therapy. He's not the same man who cheated. I could see genuine remorse, genuine effort to change. And you appointed yourself their relationship counselor." The edge in my voice revealed lingering hurt. "Not exactly. More like a sounding board. Someone who cared about both of them but could remain objective." He leaned forward, eyes pleading for understanding. "Ashley helped you through your parents' divorce. She was there for you during your darkest times. I thought I was repaying that debt by helping her navigate her own complicated situation." I understood his reasoning, even appreciated his loyalty to my friend. But understanding didn't erase the weeks of fear and doubt I'd experienced. "I thought you were having an affair," I whispered, finally giving voice to my deepest fear. "I thought our entire marriage might be a lie." Ryan moved closer, tentatively taking my hand. "Steph, I would never do that to you. Never. You're everything to me. But you lied to me for weeks. That's not what marriages are supposed to be." "You're right," his voice cracked, "and I'll regret that decision for a long time. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I hurt the person I love most in the world. I'm so sorry." We talked for hours that night, laying bare our fears and frustrations. Ryan described his growing discomfort with the secrecy, how he'd recently been pushing Ashley to come clean. I shared how his behavior had triggered my deepest insecurities, rooted in my parents' failed marriage. I was so determined not to be like my mother, suspicious and bitter, that I ignored obvious warning signs, I admitted. Then when I finally saw you going to Ashley's house, I went full-on detective mode, exactly like my mother did with my father. "The difference is your mother's suspicions were justified," Ryan pointed out gently. "Your father was actually having an affair. And you weren't, but I believed you could be, and that's almost as damaging to us." The conversation wasn't easy, but it was necessary. By morning, exhausted but clearer, we had reached a fragile understanding. Trust had been damaged on both sides, mine in believing he could betray me, his in keeping secrets that should have been shared. Rebuilding would take time and effort from both of us. The next day, I met Ashley at a quiet cafe across town. Her eyes were red-rimmed from crying, her usual confident demeanor subdued. "I never meant to come between you and Ryan," she said immediately. "That's the last thing I would ever want." "I know that now," I replied, stirring my coffee absently. "But Ashley, did you really think I'd judge you for trying again with Mark?" She looked down at her hands. "You were so supportive when we separated. You helped me find my strength, my independence. You celebrated when the divorce was finalized. And every time Mark's name came up, you had such disdain in your vote. Because he hurt you, I hated seeing you in pain." "I know. But when he reached out, when he showed me how much work he'd done on himself, I started to see a different man. Not the Mark who cheated, but the Mark I fell in love with originally, only more mature, more aware of his flaws. She looked up, meeting my eyes. I was afraid you'd think I was being a fool, throwing away my self-respect. I would have had concerns, I admitted. I would have wanted to make sure you weren't being manipulated. But I would have supported your choice either way. That's what friends do. I see that now, she said, tears welling. I should have trusted our friendship more. Instead, I created this whole mess by asking Ryan to keep my secret. He could have refused. I played the friendship card pretty hard. Reminded him how I was there for you during your parents' divorce, how much I'd done for both of you over the years. It wasn't fair of me. We sat in silence for a moment, two friends navigating unfamiliar emotional territory. So I said finally, you and Mark, is it really working? A small smile touched her lips. We're taking it very slowly. Lots of therapy, individual and couples. He's truly changed, Steph. I wouldn't be trying again if I didn't believe that. I hope you're right. I reached across the table to squeeze her hand. And I hope you know you can tell me anything, even things you think I won't want to hear. I'd rather know the truth than be protected from. I've definitely learned that lesson, she said with a rueful laugh. No more secrets. Over the following weeks, our relationships gradually began to heal. Ryan and I started seeing a marriage counselor to address the trust issues that had surfaced. He became almost radically transparent, sharing his phone without prompting, checking in regularly throughout the day, making sure I always knew his whereabouts. Initially, it felt like overcompensation, but our therapist helped us find a healthier balance between privacy and secrecy. Jessica, initially mortified by her role in the misunderstanding, eventually became a more regular part of our social circle. Her intention to protect me, though misguided, had come from a place of genuine concern. After a few awkward encounters, we found ourselves able to laugh about our amateur detective work. Ashley and Mark continued their careful reconciliation, now with both Ryan and me offering support openly. Watching them rebuild their relationship with such intentionality was both inspiring and sobering, a reminder that all relationships require ongoing work and honest communication. One evening about 3 months after the confrontation, the four of us had dinner together at our house. Watching Ryan and Mark discuss a basketball game while Ashley helped me in the kitchen felt surreal, a scene I couldn't have imagined during those painful weeks of suspicion. Did you ever think we'd be here? Ashley asked quietly, following my gaze to our husbands. Honestly, no, but I'm glad we are. She squeezed my arm affectionately. Me too, and Steph, thank you for giving all of us a second chance. Not everyone would have been so forgiving. I thought about the alternative, the relationships that would have been irreparably damaged had the truth not come out. The friendship I might have lost. The marriage that could have ended. The healing Mark and Ashley might never have attempted. Second chances are important, I replied, thinking of how close we had all come to losing something precious. As long as we learn from our mistakes. And we had learned, all of us, that secrets, even well-intentioned ones, can cause more damage than the truths they're meant to protect. A year has passed since that night I pushed open Ashley's door, expecting to find betrayal, but instead discovering misguided loyalty. The journey back to solid ground wasn't quick or easy, but the relationships that emerged from that painful time are stronger for having been tested. Ryan and I committed to rebuilding our marriage on a foundation of radical honesty. The first months were challenging. Trust, once damaged, doesn't mend overnight. We established new patterns of communication, checking in with each other about not just our whereabouts but our feelings and concerns. I never realized how much I was keeping to myself, Ryan admitted during one of our weekly check-ins, a practice suggested by our therapist. Not just Ashley's secret, but work stresses, financial worries. I thought I was protecting you, but I was really creating distance. And I never told you how deeply my parents' divorce affected my trust, I confessed. I've been carrying that fear of abandonment into our relationship from the beginning, always watching for signs you might be pulling away. These conversations weren't always comfortable, but they were necessary. Gradually, the raw edges of hurt began to smooth. The counseling sessions that had once felt like emergency intervention became tune-ups for a relationship that was functioning better than before the crisis. One significant breakthrough came when Ryan developed a new perspective on his role in the situation. I was so focused on being a good friend to Ashley that I forgot my primary commitment is to you, he said one evening as we walked our neighborhood. I convinced myself I was doing something noble by keeping her confidence, but I was actually betraying our marriage vows in a different way. I understand why you did it, I replied, meaning it finally. Ashley needed support during an incredibly vulnerable. Yes, but I could have found a way to support her without lying to you. I should have encouraged her to tell you herself, or at least made it clear I couldn't keep such a significant secret from my wife. His willingness to take full responsibility for his part, without qualifications or excuses, helped me trust his commitment to change. My friendship with Ashley evolved as well. The initial awkwardness between us gradually gave way to a deeper understanding. We had both made mistakes, she in asking Ryan to keep secrets from me in assuming the worst without direct communication. I've been thinking about why I was so afraid to tell you about Mark, she said during a hike 6 months after the confrontation. It wasn't just about disappointing you. I think I was afraid of admitting I might have been wrong about ending the marriage. But you weren't wrong, I pointed out. He cheated, you had every right to leave. Yes, but relationships aren't always that black and white. Mark did a terrible thing, but he's not a terrible person. It took me a long time to separate those truths. Her willingness to see beyond categorical judgments once cheater, always cheater challenged my own tendency toward rigid thinking. Sometimes people do change. Sometimes broken trust can be rebuilt, though never quite the same as before. Ashley and Mark's reconciliation progressed with careful steps. They began with weekly date nights, then gradually increased their time together. Mark continued his individual therapy, addressing the insecurities and communication failures that had contributed to his infidelity. Ashley worked with her own therapist on establishing healthy boundaries and recognizing her. 6 months ago, Mark moved back into their home, not the house they had shared during their marriage, but Ashley's smaller place, representing their fresh start. The relationship they're building now bears little resemblance to their first marriage, with its unspoken expectations and avoidance of difficult conversation. We talk about everything now, Ashley told me recently. Things we used to sweep under the rug. It's not always easy, but it's real in a way we never were before. Jessica became an unexpected addition to our friend group. Her initial intervention, though based on misconceptions, came from a place of genuine concern. After the awkwardness faded, we discovered shared interests in hiking and photography. Her directness, sometimes bordering on bluntness, became a quality I appreciated rather than feared. I still feel terrible about jumping to conclusions, she admitted during a coffee date last month. I should have found a way to talk to you first, before playing amateur detective. We all made mistakes, I replied. But your heart was in the right place. You saw someone potentially being hurt and you tried to help. That counts for something. The lessons from this painful chapter in our lives continue to reveal themselves. Perhaps the most significant is the danger of assumptions without verification. I had constructed an entire narrative of betrayal based on circumstantial evidence, filtered through the lens of my own insecurities. That narrative nearly destroyed my marriage and my closest friendship. I've also learned the value of direct communication, even when it's uncomfortable. Had I confronted Ryan with my suspicions immediately, weeks of pain might have been avoided. Instead, I gathered evidence in secret, allowing my worst fears to solidify into assumed facts. Ryan learned that secrets, even those kept with good intentions, can cause profound damage to intimate relationships. His desire to help Ashley came at the cost of his transparency with me, a price neither of us would willingly pay again. Ashley recognized that true friendship includes trusting others with your vulnerabilities and imperfections. Her fear of judgment led to a cascade of secrecy that nearly cost her our friendship. And Mark, perhaps, learned the most difficult lesson of all, that the consequences of betrayal extend far beyond the immediate relationship, affecting friendships and creating ripples of mistrust that can last for years. Last weekend, the 4 of us went away together to a lake house in the mountains. Sitting around a campfire, watching the interplay of light and shadow on familiar faces, I was struck by how close we had come to losing these connections. How easily misunderstandings and secrets can unravel years of shared history and genuine love. I propose a toast, Ryan said, raising his glass, to second chances, hard truths, and relationships worth fighting for. We clinked glasses, the sound ringing clear in the night air. Looking around at these people who had hurt me, whom I had hurt in return, I felt profound gratitude for the resilience of human connection, how it can bend under pressure without breaking, emerge stronger from tests of fire. None of us are the same people we were a year ago. We've been humbled by our mistakes, strengthened by difficult conversations, and reminded that relationships require continual tending, like gardens that need regular care to flourish. If you're watching this and struggling with trust issues in your own relationships, I hope our story offers some perspective. Sometimes what looks like betrayal is something else entirely. Sometimes the people we love make mistakes that hurt us deeply without intending harm. And sometimes, with courage and honesty, relationships can heal from even the most painful misunderstandings. I'd love to know if you've ever experienced something similar, a moment when assumptions led you down the wrong path, or when forgiveness allowed a relationship to rebuild. Share your stories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this resonated with you. Remember, in a world where it's easy to walk away, choosing to stay and work through difficulties is its own kind of strength. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you wisdom and courage in your own relationships.